Chuck Fleischmann is Congressman for the state of Tennessee and an expert in the world of energy. And that's what we're going to talk about because we are at Earth X and we want to know how we can come to a sustainable, clean planet. And obviously, politics plays a role there. Welcome, Chuck. Good to have you here. What can you tell us that is hopeful about the energy transition?
Well, thank you for that question. I chair the Energy and Water Subcommittee on the House Appropriations Full Committee. And now for about 15 years, I've worked very hard on all energy issues. America and the world needs more energy. The demand is voracious. It's going to continue. One of the areas that I've worked on in clean, sustainable, resilient energy is nuclear energy. Now, we have been fortunate in our country and around the world that nuclear energy, civil nuclear energy, has been abundant and has been growing. In my part of the world, the Tennessee Valley Authority, its footprint in nuclear is 47% of its total base load. Nuclear in the United States is about 20%. Some utilities use more, some less. But there's a chance right now that we have in this country, and actually around the world, but I want America to lead this, in what we call new nuclear. Advanced reactors, microreactors, small modular reactors. These are nuclear modalities that are easier to build, easier to license, produce less energy, but are very reliant and will be able to support data centers and the like. So a tremendous opportunity.
Help me understand the size of these because
Sure.
I think everybody knows a big nuclear power plant, that's a huge facility, and this is smaller, but how much smaller? What does it look like?
Well, you could probably put this, a small modular reactor on the space of what you would have maybe a very small building like a regional post office, okay, as opposed to a large complex. Now, the large nuclear power plants are very important. We're extending their life. We're actually building some more. Vogtle was built in Georgia. We need those. We need large nuclear. But new nuclear is going to be something that these are modular. You could build it in a factory, theoretically, take it on site, lay it on site, and it would serve a need, perhaps for a data center, perhaps for a smaller city. So they're easier to build, they're resilient, their fuels are infinitely safe. It's just a win-win. The key question is which ones do we choose? There are a lot of modalities out there, a lot of technologies. Our friends, the French, the South Koreans, are building these. They're working on these. Sadly, our adversaries are very good at this as well. Russia and China are working on these and also have their own designs. So the world is going to move in that direction. The question is how do we get there?
So, of course, in the public opinion, there are questions about nuclear energy, safety to begin with, and waste maybe down the road. So, how do you address those? Let's talk about safety.
Nuclear power has always been safe.
Well, but that, if I may interrupt, 3 Mile Island, we had the power,
Sure.
Chernobyl. These are things people remember.
They remember, but the reality is new nuclear is abundantly safe. The fuels are safe, okay, the technologies are safe. We've got to reassure the people that it is there, but it's reliant, it's strong, it's affordable once you get it built. The first of a kind are more expensive. You asked the question about fuel. Spent nuclear fuel, our friends the French and even our adversaries reprocess that fuel. They can get up to 96, sometimes 97% of that original fuel back. It's almost a recycling process, very important. The United States does not do that. We have not done that now for decades. We're looking at doing that again. I've put up funds in appropriation bills so that we can basically take a look at reprocessing. But rest assured, it is safe, it is reliable, Once we deal with the spent nuclear fuel issue, which is an issue, and we will, I think it's going to be the future.
And so one thing is the new systems, the new plants, of course, have new technology and everything always gets better. So I can understand that that is also safer. But you're also talking about extending the life of existing nuclear power plants.
Correct.
And they are built with the old technology.
They are, and we're actually building new large. We need new large nuclear plants in this country. Vogtle in Georgia is going to have at least 2, maybe 3 towers running. These are large new nuclear builds. They produce more energy. I think that's very important. It's companies like Westinghouse are building these. Bechtel came in and did a very good job at Vogtle. These are just a few companies that are in the big nuclear space. These other modalities are less expensive, they're smaller, their output is smaller, but this is where we have probably literally about 8 or 10 designs that are out there. The key is to pick the right one. Some require existing fuel, which would be LEU, it's enriched to 5%. Others will require HALEU that's enriched up to about 19.75%. But regardless of that, if we choose the right modalities, ultimately, we could see the deployment of hundreds of these across the United States and the world.
So you mentioned several countries that are leading
Yes.
the new nuclear energy modalities.
Yes.
But the United States was not one of those names you mentioned, is it?
We're leading now, but we're catching up. France has reprocessed nuclear fuel for years successfully and safely. Our friends the Germans retreated from their nuclear posture and now became overly dependent on coal and other countries for their energy. They made a huge mistake. France now is exporting energy because of their nuclear posture to the rest of Europe. South Korea is very strong in this market. Other countries have expressed interest in American technologies. I'll be specific. The Romanians have come to me and said, we don't want to do business with the Russians or Chinese. We want to do business with America.
There are good US-based reactor companies.
Absolutely. Several designs that are out there. Some are in the Generation 3 mode that use existing fuels. Some are in the Generation 4 mode that will require highly enriched uranium, what we call HALEU.
The environmental movement needs, a big support, widespread, and we don't need political divides within that movement, because one could argue that whatever the world we're living in is the same for all of us. However, that is not the reality we're dealing with. The reality is that we are living in a polarized world that also impacts the environmental movement. Now, it seems that you've been able to build, at least for your field of nuclear energy, a bipartisan initiative in Congress. Tell me about that.
Very much so. I threw a reception early in this first Congress for new nuclear. We invited Republicans and we invited Democrats. We had an equal number of Republicans and Democrats show up at the Republican Club to explore new nuclear. What we're seeing is an age divide. Older Democrats, candidly, are not going to be able to get there on nuclear. They still envision what you referred to, the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. Younger Democrats realize, along with younger Republicans, that new nuclear power is resilient, it's reliable, it's infinitely safe in all aspects, from its fuel on the front end to the back end of the cycle. So we're seeing a renewed interest. Why? It's truly clean. It will be abundant. The rest of the world is going there. And America has an opportunity to dominate this entire area or not. If we do not gain traction within the next 5, maybe 10 years, we will lose this market to not only our foes, but our friends.
So what do you say to the environmental campaigner who says, well, it's great nuclear, but we can achieve the same thing with solar panels?
Can't get there. The generation of power, I tell my friends who like wind and who like solar, that can be part of the portfolio, but there's no way that we get to our energy needs in this country without new nuclear. It just won't happen.
The risks involved. I mean,
Yes.
that's the problem, not just with nuclear, but big power plants are also military targets. So if you, in this increasingly, at least in Europe, we haven't talked about war for decades, but suddenly that's happening again. And the
Sure.
US is part of that. I'm not sure that I see which country is going to attack the US, except for China, perhaps, but still far away. But my point is, these big power structures are vulnerable.
In Ukraine, they have been. And we've been contacted by people in Ukraine where the Russian invasion has actually come around and involved some of these larger, older Soviet-era nuclear power plants. The answer is to build them safer and more secure. We literally have buildings now that we can construct that you could fly an airplane into and it wouldn't affect it. We've actually built that in the United States. So I think safe construction is important, but also we need to condemn any of these attacks that are made anywhere near a nuclear power plant. Mm-hmm. Because when they reached out to me, I thought the danger was a direct hit. The danger was if it hit their power source. They explained that very clearly. Fortunately, we did not have an incident that caused any type of major turmoil, but it was very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. What do you hear about the overall sensitivity? We've been talking here at EarthX about the vulnerability of the power grid as such, right?
Sure.
That's another military target, if you like.
Yes. Physical and also technological vulnerability. We need to work to make sure that both are protected, all are protected. And once again, I think these are some of the conversations that we have got to have with not only our friends, but particularly our adversaries, to say we can never even have rhetoric that is out there talking about the use of a weapon against any of these facilities. It's unfathomable what could happen on the battlefield in these countries. I do believe the United States is safe, but we need to do more to ensure, again, not only the physical, but also the technological integrity of the grid.
One way to make it even safer would be to use, as you said it, the smaller reactors that are less, dominant, of course, in as a physical structure to begin with, and they could be integrated in microgrids, and that could make the whole system more resilient.
Absolutely, and you can actually have one facility, perhaps even a data center, and we've seen some of the larger companies, Amazon, Google, and others, Microsoft, get into agreements, enter actually into contractual agreements with American new nuclear companies to actually build these on site. Mm-hmm. So when the technology is ready, when the designs are there and they're ready to build, you can actually have one of these smaller modular reactors power an entire data center.
Clean energy may not be a number one priority for the new administration in Washington, but it seems that nuclear could fit in even for this administration.
Secretary Wright and I have had several discussions. He's come to Oak Ridge. He's the right person, I think, at the right time for a very important job as Secretary of Energy in the Trump administration. He's very pro-nuclear. He has served on the board of a nuclear company, which is still very competitive and out there doing quite a bit of good work, competing with the others. But he's cognizant of the fact that nuclear energy is reliable, it's clean, ultimately affordable, and it's resilient.
So do you expect investments and movement towards
Yes.
more power plants in the next few years during
Absolutely.
this administration?
Absolutely. He's come to Oak Ridge. He has seen the existing technologies. We've talked about whether they're Generation 3 or Generation 4 nuclear technologies. He knows about all of the companies. He's got the arduous task, ultimately, when they have the competitions for these federal dollars, which I've appropriated and put up whether it's $2.7 billion in fiscal 24 for HALU, whether it's the $900 million for the SMR competition. He's got the very difficult task of deciding which companies should get that. I don't do that. That will be his job. I want to make sure he has all the resources necessary to make the right decision.
So today, as you said, nuclear power provides about 20% of the power electricity in the United States. What can that be, and should that be in your perspective?
Well, we want to make sure that it continues to grow. It depends on the overall needs. Short term, I think natural gas is going to come in and fill a tremendous, tremendous role because it's abundant, it's less expensive, and it's a very reliable source. Longer term, as we move into this, I could see a situation where, like Tennessee has 47% nuclear through TVA, through their portfolio. Constellation is about 60% nuclear, so it's going to grow. What we want to do is entice or bring some of these other utilities in other parts of the country that may not have as much nuclear to increase their portfolio. And I will say this, working with other forms of clean energy, geothermal is abundant in the western part of the United States. It's just not in my part of the country, but where that's abundant, we want to use that. So we want to tap into what makes not only economic sense, but what is abundant in that particular region.
Maybe finally, you're living daily, your work is in,
Yes.
in a very difficult environment at the moment. I'm talking about the political environment.
Sure.
And what can you do as one of the people there to make that environment healthier and more inspiring for the average person who's watching whatever is going on?
Sure. In my advocacy as chairman of the Energy and Water Subcommittee on Appropriations, I can craft and continue to craft bills like I've done the last 2 years that are good for the entire United States, that make economic sense, that make sense in terms of clean energy, reliant energy, abundant energy, and that the American people, whether they're a Republican and Democrat, can look at and say, what is that goal? To have more American dominance in energy. We're going to need more energy. We've got to produce it. So I think if we see everything move forward, we're seeing more Democrats join us, more senators join us in our endeavors. I think get the information out there, craft responsible legislation, and put those key federal dollars that are so in competition right now. They're going to be sparse. We want to put those key resources where they're needed and not waste them.
Thank you, Congressman Fleischmann.
It's a pleasure, sir.